I sat in the Guatemala City Airport departure terminal, staring at my phone through tears I didn't have the energy to wipe away. 3 hours ago, I'd buried my husband Mark in foreign soil. My fingers trembled as I opened our family group chat and typed, "Flight lands at 3 p.m. Can someone pick me up?" My brother Derek's response came fast. "We're busy. Try Uber." Then my mother Patricia added, "Why didn't you plan better?" Something inside me cracked. I typed back, "No worries." But what they saw on the news that night made them drop their phones. The fluorescent lights of the airport felt harsh against my exhausted eyes. Around me, travelers rushed to their gates, pulled along by the momentum of ordinary life. I envied them. 4 days ago, I'd been like them, just a 29-year-old woman on a humanitarian mission with her husband, thinking we were making a difference in the world. Now I was a widow returning home alone. Mark had been so alive that morning. We'd been in Guatemala for 2 weeks, working with a nonprofit organization building medical clinics in rural villages. Mark was a civil engineer, brilliant with structural design. I coordinated logistics and community outreach. We'd done this kind of work together for 3 years, ever since we got married. Before that, we'd spent 2 years dating, dreaming about the life we'd build together. He was only 32 years old, healthy, athletic, the kind of man who ran 5 miles every morning before breakfast. That's what made his death so impossible to understand. We'd been reviewing building plans in our small rented room when he suddenly grabbed his chest. I can still see the confusion in his eyes, the way he looked at me like I could fix this, like I could save him the way I'd saved everything else in our life together. I tried. God, how I tried. I did chest compressions while screaming for help. The local hospital was small, understaffed, not equipped for emergencies. The doctors did what they could, but it wasn't enough. Sudden cardiac arrest, they said. Sometimes it just happens, they said. Young, healthy people, no warning, they said. Their words felt like stones dropping into dark water, disappearing without making sense. The funeral happened fast, too fast. Guatemalan regulations, bureaucratic requirements I barely understood through my shock. A small cemetery on a hill, Mark's body in a simple casket, a handful of volunteers from the clinic standing with me in the afternoon heat. I remember the sound of dirt hitting wood. I remember not crying because it didn't feel real. It still doesn't feel real. Now, on this plane heading back to New York, I felt the walls of reality closing in. The grief sat in my chest like a physical weight, making it hard to breathe. The other passengers probably thought I was sleeping, the way I had my eyes closed and my head against the window. But I wasn't sleeping. I was trying to survive each minute. I pulled Mark's backpack from under the seat in front of me. His things. His journal with notes about load-bearing calculations and community needs assessments. His water bottle. His reading glasses. I touched each item like a sacred relic, trying to hold on to something solid in a world that had become liquid and unstable. That's when I found it. Tucked into a hidden pocket inside his journal, a small USB drive. I almost missed it. The pocket was the kind sewn into the spine of expensive notebooks, meant for keeping documents flat. Mark had been methodical about organization. This placement was deliberate. I turned the drive over in my palm. A label in Mark's neat handwriting. Insurance open if anything happens to me. My blood went cold. Mark had written this. Mark had hidden this. Mark had planned for something to happen to him. My laptop was in my carry-on. My hands shook so badly I could barely get the USB drive into the port. The flight attendant made her rounds, offering drinks I couldn't imagine consuming. I waved her away, my entire focus on the screen loading in front of me. Folders appeared. Financial documents, bank records, legal files, emails, spreadsheets with highlighted transactions, and a document titled, "Read this first, K." I opened it. Mark's words filled the screen, dated 2 weeks before we left for Guatemala. "Kristen, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have told you about this weeks ago, but I wanted to be absolutely certain before I upset you. I've been investigating your family. I know how that sounds, but please, keep reading. The next 15 pages detailed something I couldn't process at first. My brother Derek, who I thought worked a middle management marketing job at some tech startup, had been systematically embezzling from our late father's estate for the past 2 years. Not small amounts. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, rerouted through shell companies, falsified on tax documents, hidden in investment accounts under fake names. My mother Patricia wasn't just aware, she was actively participating. Forged signatures on estate documents, backdated paperwork. Her name appeared on transfer authorizations, distribution forms, trustee decisions. And their family lawyer, Howard Chen. Wait, I need to use a different name. Howard Castellano had helped them do all of it. My father died 3 years ago. Cancer, long and brutal, taking pieces of him, until there was nothing left. His estate was worth approximately $4.2 million. Commercial real estate holdings, investment portfolios, the company he'd built from nothing over 30 years. Hammond and Associates, a commercial real estate development firm with 300 employees and an impeccable reputation. According to his will, the estate was split. 40% to my mother, 30% to Derek, 30% to me. My share should have been about $1.26 million. I'd received some of it, yes. Small distributions over the past 2 years, managed by Howard. Nothing enormous, but enough that I hadn't questioned it. Mark and I lived modestly. We didn't need much. I trusted my family to handle the complicated financial details. That trust was the weapon they'd used against me. Mark's investigation had started 6 months ago. He'd noticed something odd in one of the estate statements Howard sent. A property sale that didn't match public records. Mark had a mind for details, for patterns. He'd started digging, quietly, using his access to public databases and his engineering precision to track every transaction. The truth was staggering. Derek and Patricia, working with Howard, had stolen nearly $2 million from my inheritance. They'd done it slowly, carefully, through a web of legitimate-looking transactions that would fool anyone who wasn't looking closely. Real estate transfers to shell companies they controlled. Investment losses that were actually redirected funds. Legal fees that never went to legitimate services. Mark had documentation for all of it. Bank records showing the money trail. Property records proving ownership transfers. Email correspondence between Derek, Patricia, and Howard, discussing how to hide the transactions. Recorded phone calls Mark had somehow obtained. Voices discussing my father's estate like it was their personal piggy bank. The final note in Mark's document was dated 1 week before his death. I'm almost ready to bring this to authorities. I have enough evidence now to prove criminal fraud. I'll tell Kristen when we get home from Guatemala. I don't want to ruin the mission by upsetting her beforehand. She's been through so much with her father's death. I want to give her a few more weeks of peace before I turn her world upside down. They can't know I'm on to them. I've been careful. 1 more week, and we'll make this right. I stared at the screen as the plane hit turbulence, my stomach lurching. 1 more week. Mark had planned to tell me in 1 more week. Instead, he was dead. The thought came unbidden, terrible, impossible to ignore. Was Mark's death really natural? I felt sick. The cabin suddenly felt too small, too hot, the recycled air choking me. I looked around at the other passengers, all of them absorbed in their movies and magazines and naps, unaware that the woman in seat 17B was having her entire reality shattered at 30,000 feet. My family's coldness in the group chat. We're busy. Try Uber. Why didn't you plan better? It hadn't been just inconvenience or insensitivity. They knew. They knew Mark had been investigating them. And now Mark was dead. And they couldn't risk picking me up from the airport. Couldn't risk me asking questions or sharing what Mark might have told me. Or maybe I was going insane. Maybe grief was making me paranoid. Maybe my husband had really just died of a freak heart attack, and this embezzlement thing was separate, unrelated. But the timing felt like a scream. I copied everything on the USB drive to my phone's cloud storage. All the documents, all the evidence, backed up and protected. If something happened to this physical drive, I'd still have proof. The plane's Wi-Fi was terrible, but I let it upload slowly, watching the progress bar inch forward like my life depended on it, because maybe it did. When we landed at JFK at 3:07 in the afternoon, I felt like a different person than the one who'd boarded in Guatemala. Grief had company now. Betrayal. Fear. Rage so deep it felt like a second heartbeat. I walked through the terminal in a daze, following signs to ground transportation. My silver Honda Accord was in long-term parking, where I'd left it 9 days ago when Mark and I departed for our trip. 9 days. It felt like 9 years. But I couldn't drive. I couldn't trust my hands to be steady on the wheel, couldn't trust my mind to focus on traffic and lane changes, when all I could think about was my husband's hidden USB drive and the family that had stolen from me. I requested an Uber instead. The Uber driver was a kind-faced man in his 60s named Bill. He had gentle eyes and a worn Yankees cap, and when he saw me struggling with Mark's backpack and my luggage, he immediately got out to help. I mumbled my thanks, gave him the address of a hotel in Midtown Manhattan, and collapsed into the back seat. Bill didn't press for conversation. He offered me a bottle of water from his cooler, which I accepted with shaking hands. As we merged onto the highway, he turned on soft jazz, keeping the volume low. Something about his quiet competence made me feel slightly less alone, even though we didn't exchange more than a few words. I stared out the window at the New York traffic, the familiar skyline emerging in the distance. Home. Except it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like enemy territory. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, some instinct telling me to avoid everything and everyone. But something else. Maybe the part of me that was Mark's wife, the part that had learned to be brave and engaged with the world, made me answer. Kristen? Kristen Hammond? The voice was male, older, urgent. Yes. Who is this? It's Gerald. Gerald Hammond, your father's business partner. Thank God I finally reached you. I've been trying to call for 2 days. Gerald. I remembered him vaguely from my father's funeral. A tall man with silver hair, genuine grief in his eyes when he'd hugged me and told me my father was the best man he'd ever known. They'd built Hammond and Associates together 40 years ago, 2 ambitious kids fresh out of college with big dreams and a willingness to work 18-hour days. Gerald, I just landed. I've been out of the country. What's wrong? Everything. Everything is wrong. Kristen, there's an emergency shareholders meeting tomorrow morning at 9. I need you to be there. My exhausted brain struggled to catch up. A meeting? About what? About selling the company. Your brother Derek has been pushing through a sale to a corporate liquidation firm called Nexus Holdings. The vote is tomorrow. It's the final decision. If it passes, Hammond and Associates is gone. I felt like I'd been punched. What? Derek can't sell Dad's company. He doesn't have the authority. That's what I thought too. But Kristen, Derek has been manipulating board politics for months. I didn't see it until it was almost too late. He got himself appointed to the board using forged documents, claiming he has a greater stake in your father's estate than what's actual. He's been lying about share percentages, distribution agreements, trustee decisions. Howard has been helping him falsify everything. Howard, the family lawyer. Of course, Gerald continued, his voice tight with anger and fear. The sale price is $40 million. $40 million, Kristen. This company is worth at least $200 million. At least. We have contracts in place, projects in development, 300 employees, a reputation built over 4 decades. This is a fire sale. This is destruction. Why would Derek do this? Money. I did some digging of my own. Derek has a secret side deal with Nexus Holdings, a $5 million consulting fee. That's really just a kickback. He's selling his father's legacy for a bribe, and once Nexus takes over, they'll strip the assets and liquidate everything within 6 months. Every single employee will lose their job. Every project will be canceled. Your father's life work will be erased like it never existed. I closed my eyes, feeling the car sway as Bill changed lanes. What can I do? I'm just his daughter. I don't have any power in the company. Yes, you do. You inherited 20% of the shares directly from your father. Derek has manipulated things, but he can't touch that 20%. It's yours, protected in the original will. If you show up tomorrow and vote against the sale, it can't pass. But you have to be there in person, with proper documentation proving your stake. And Kristen, Derek knows you're his only obstacle. He's been telling everyone you're too grief-stricken to participate in business matters. If you don't show up, he wins by default. I looked at the time on my phone, 4:13 in the afternoon, less than 17 hours until the meeting. I hadn't slept in over 48 hours. I'd just buried my husband. I'd just discovered my family had been robbing me blind. And now I had to fight a corporate battle against my own brother to save my father's company. I'll be there, I heard myself say. Thank you, Kristen. Your father would be proud. I'll see you at 9 tomorrow morning. Bring your identification, your passport, anything that proves who you are. We'll get through this. He hung up. I sat in silence, my heart pounding, my mind racing. Bill glanced at me in the rearview mirror, concerned, but still respectfully quiet. I needed to prepare. I needed documentation. I needed to access my father's estate accounts to get copies of the will, the share certificates, the legal proof of my ownership. I pulled up the estate management website on my phone, entered my login credentials. Error. Invalid password. I tried again, carefully typing each character. Error. Invalid username or password. My stomach dropped. I tried the backup email account associated with the estate. Password changed. Security questions reset. I was locked out of everything. Derek had locked me out. While I was in Guatemala burying my husband, my brother had systematically cut off my access to every account, every document, every piece of evidence I'd need to prove my stake in the company. I called Howard's office. The family lawyer who'd known me since I was a child, who'd stood beside my father at every major life event, who'd promised at Dad's funeral to take care of the family. Voicemail. You've reached the law offices of Howard Castellano. We're currently closed. Please leave a message, and we'll return your call during business hours. Howard, it's Kristen Hammond. I need access to estate documents immediately for tomorrow's board meeting. This is urgent. Call me back as soon as you get this. I hung up and waited. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. No response. We pulled up to the Hampton Inn on 41st Street. Bill helped me with my bags, refused the extra tip I tried to give him, told me to take care of myself, and drove away. I stood on the sidewalk, feeling the October wind cut through my jacket, and wondered how everything had fallen apart so completely. The hotel lobby was generic, clean, corporate. I checked in with a clerk who barely looked at me, got my room key, rode the elevator to the 4th floor. Room 412. Small space with a queen bed, a desk, a bathroom, a window overlooking an alley. It felt like a cell. I spread Mark's documents across the desk, opened my laptop, started organizing everything I had. If I couldn't get official estate documents, maybe I could build a case from Mark's evidence. Show the board that Derek was a criminal, that he couldn't be trusted with the company sale. But I didn't know corporate law. I didn't know business procedures. I was a logistics coordinator for humanitarian missions. I planned supply deliveries and community meetings, not boardroom battles. I tried calling other board members. I found their names and numbers in old emails from my father, Arnold Patterson, the chairman, Susan Webster, the CFO, Charles Ryan, the head of development. None of them answered. Every call went to voicemail. Every message I left sounded increasingly desperate, even to my own ears. At 6:47, Howard finally called back. Kristen. His voice was cold, professional, nothing like the warm family friend I remembered. I heard about Mark. My condolences. Howard, I don't have time for condolences. I need the estate documents. Derek's trying to sell Dad's company, and I need proof of my share ownership to stop it. Silence on the other end. Then, Kristen, I'm going to be direct with you. You're not thinking clearly. You've just experienced a traumatic loss. Derek is acting in the estate's best interests. This sale is a sound business decision. Sound? It's robbery. The company is worth $200 million and they're selling for $40. That's not accurate. The current market valuation, taking into account debts and liabilities, makes $40 million a fair price. Derek has done extensive analysis. Derek is getting a $5 million kickback from Nexus Holdings. Another pause. Kristen, who told you that? These are wild accusations. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're not in a state to make rational judgments. The way he said it, the dismissive tone, the subtle implication that I was hysterical, unstable, not to be trusted. I felt rage flood through me. I have evidence, Howard. Mark was investigating the estate fraud. I know what you and Derek and my mother have been doing. Evidence. Howard's voice changed, became sharper. Kristen, Derek and your mother have asked me to evaluate your mental state. If you make wild accusations at tomorrow's meeting, we'll be forced to take legal action. We can have you declared temporarily incompetent due to grief and psychological trauma. It's for your own protection. We're your family. We want to help you. I couldn't breathe. You're threatening me. I'm advising you. Get some rest. Don't attend tomorrow's meeting. Let Derek handle the business matters. You focus on healing. That's what your father would want. He hung up. I sat holding my phone, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. They were going to destroy me. Not just steal from me, but discredit me, silence me, make everyone believe I was crazy. And I had no way to fight back. No evidence they couldn't claim was fabricated. No allies they hadn't already turned against me. I tried to eat the granola bar from my bag, couldn't swallow, tried to lie down, couldn't stay still. Panic attacks came in waves, each one leaving me gasping and dizzy. At 11:34 at night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I can help you. I knew Mark. Meet me in the hotel lobby. Come alone. A friend. I stared at the message. Every rational part of my brain screamed that this was a trap. Derek knew where I was. He could have sent someone to hurt me, to ensure I never made it to tomorrow's meeting. But the irrational part, the part drowning in grief and desperation, thought, what if it's real? What if someone actually wants to help? I had nothing left to lose. I went downstairs. The hotel lobby was almost empty at this hour. Just a young man at the front desk typing on a computer, and a woman sitting in a chair by the window. She stood when she saw me. Kristen? She was in her mid-30s, athletic build, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, kind eyes that looked genuinely concerned. I'm Sophie Brennan. We sat in a quiet corner away from the desk clerk. Sophie leaned forward, speaking softly. I was in Guatemala. I'm a volunteer nurse. I worked at the medical clinic with you and Mark. I know you probably don't remember me. There were so many volunteers coming and going. But I remember both of you. You were amazing, the way you organized everything, made sure supplies got where they needed to be. And Mark was so dedicated, staying up late to revise building plans, making sure everything was safe. I did remember her, vaguely. A woman in scrubs, always moving between patients, always competent and calm. Why are you here? I asked. Because you left Guatemala so fast. I wanted to make sure you were okay. I have family in New York, so I flew in today. I found out which hotel you were staying at through the nonprofit coordinator. I hope that's not too intrusive. She seemed genuine. But I thought my family was genuine too, and look how that turned out. Sophie asked gentle questions. How was I holding up? Did I have support here? Was there anything she could do? And somehow, exhausted and desperate, I found myself telling her everything. The embezzlement, the board meeting, the threats, the impossible situation I was trapped in. Sophie listened without interrupting. When I finished, she took a long breath. "Kristen, I need to tell you something about Mark's death. I don't think it was a heart attack." Everything stopped. "What?" "I'm a cardiac nurse, have been for 12 years. I've seen hundreds of heart attacks. Mark's symptoms before he collapsed weren't consistent with cardiac arrest." She closed her eyes, remembering. He had severe abdominal pain first, sweating, confusion, then the seizure. It looked like poisoning, something toxic in his food or drink. The room tilted. Poisoning? By the time I realized what I was seeing, he was gone. The local hospital ruled it natural causes without thorough investigation. That's common in rural areas with limited resources. They see a young man, sudden collapse. They assume heart attack and move on. But I've been haunted by it, Kristen. I did research after you left. I tracked down some of Mark's backed up files through shared cloud folders from the clinic computers. I know what he was investigating. I think someone in your family had him killed. I couldn't speak, couldn't think. My husband, murdered. The word felt too big, too violent, too impossible. Sophie reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. I have copies of additional evidence Mark gathered. He was meticulous. He backed up everything to multiple locations. I found some of it and printed it out. I want to help you prepare for tomorrow's meeting. We went up to my room, spread everything across the desk, my laptop with Mark's USB drive contents, Sophie's printed documents, notes and timelines, and evidence of fraud so overwhelming. It seemed impossible my family had gotten away with it. Sophie was brilliant. She helped me organize everything into a coherent presentation. We built a timeline showing exactly when each fraudulent transaction occurred. We matched them with email correspondence, proving Derek and Patricia knew exactly what they were doing. We found property records, bank statements, phone logs, everything a prosecutor would need to build a criminal case. "You don't just present this at the board meeting," Sophie said. "You give them a choice. Either they vote against the sale and Derek, or you go to the FBI with all of this. Fraud, embezzlement, murder. They'll have no choice but to back down." It was 3:17 in the morning when the fire alarm screamed through the building. The automated voice blared, "This is not a drill. Evacuate the building immediately. This is not a drill." Smoke seeped under the door, gray and acrid. Sophie jumped up. "We have to go. Now." I grabbed my phone. Sophie grabbed her bag. The hallway was already filling with smoke. Other guests emerging from rooms in pajamas and confusion. Everyone heading for the stairwell. The crowd pushed and shoved. Someone's elbow hit my ribs. A child was crying. The smoke got thicker as we descended, making my eyes water and my throat burn. I could hear fire alarms on every floor, creating a disorienting echo. I reached for my laptop bag on the desk, all of Mark's evidence, everything we'd just organized. Sophie grabbed my arm, pulled me toward the door. "No time. We have to go." "But the evidence. Your life matters more. Move." We ran. Down 4 flights of stairs packed with panicking people. Out through the lobby, through the front doors, onto the street where hundreds of guests gathered in various states of dress and distress. Fire trucks arrived, sirens wailing. Police cars blocked off the street. I looked around for Sophie in the chaos. She'd been right beside me in the stairwell. Now she was gone. I pushed through the crowd, searching for her dark ponytail, her athletic frame. Nothing. She'd vanished. My laptop, Mark's USB drive, Sophie's printed documents. Everything was still in room 412. Everything was burning. I tried to go back inside. A firefighter grabbed me, held me back. "Ma'am, you cannot enter the building. My laptop is in there. I need my laptop." "Ma'am, step back. This is a crime scene." Crime scene. The words penetrated my panic. "What?" A fire marshal approached, talking into his radio. He turned to address the crowd. "The fire appears to have been deliberately set. We're conducting an arson investigation. Anyone with information should speak with police immediately." Deliberately set. Arson. I looked up at the building, at the smoke pouring from the 4th floor, specifically from the area near my room. "Which room did the fire start in?" I asked a police officer. She checked her notes. "Room 414. Right next to yours, ma'am." "Were you in 412? "Right next door." Someone had set a fire in the room beside mine, destroying my evidence while making it look like a random act of arson, close enough to my room to ensure maximum damage, but not so obvious as to start in my room itself. Someone knew I was here. Someone knew I had evidence. Someone had tried to destroy it. "Do you know who was registered to 414? I asked. The officer shook her head. "Fake name. Paid cash. We're pulling security footage now." Sophie. Where was Sophie? I searched the crowd again and again. She'd helped me organize everything. She'd pulled me from the room, and now she was nowhere. Had she even been real? Or was I so exhausted, so grief-stricken, so desperate that I'd imagined her? Had I been sitting in my room alone, talking to myself, hallucinating a helpful nurse who knew Mark? No, she'd been real. I remembered her hand on my arm, her voice in my ear, the folder she'd pulled from her bag. But where was she now? The sky started to lighten. Dawn breaking over the city. I stood on the sidewalk in smoke-stained clothes, surrounded by displaced hotel guests, watching firefighters battle the blaze that had consumed every piece of evidence that could save me. It was 4:55 in the morning. The board meeting started in 4 hours and 5 minutes. I had nothing. No documentation, no evidence, no preparation, no allies, no hope. I'd been systematically destroyed before the battle even began. I showed up to Hammond and Associates headquarters at 8:53 in the morning, looking like exactly what I was, a disaster. I hadn't slept, hadn't showered. My clothes smelled like smoke. My hair was a mess. My eyes were red from crying and smoke exposure. I probably looked like I'd spent the night on the street, which wasn't far from the truth. The building was all glass and steel, soaring 30 stories into the Manhattan sky. My father had designed it himself, his masterpiece, his legacy in architectural form. Every angle was deliberate, every material chosen with care. He'd wanted it to represent solidity, integrity, permanence. The irony of his son trying to destroy it from the inside felt like a knife twisting in my chest. The elevator took me to the 14th floor, where the main conference room dominated the northeast corner. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. A massive oak table that could seat 20. My father's portrait on the wall, his kind eyes seeming to watch over every meeting held in this space. Board members were already filing in. 9 people total, including Gerald, who gave me a quick, worried nod. He looked like he hadn't slept either. The others were a mix of ages and backgrounds, all wearing expensive suits and guarded expressions. My brother Derek arrived at exactly 9 o'clock. Tailored charcoal suit, designer tie, hair perfectly styled, confident smile on his face. He looked like success personified. He looked like our father, which made everything worse. He saw me and his smile widened. "Oh, you actually came. We weren't sure you'd be up for this." He turned to the others. "My sister just got back from Guatemala yesterday. She buried her husband a few days ago. This is a very difficult time for her." He said it with such concern, such brotherly love. Several board members murmured sympathetic sounds. One woman, Susan Webster, came over and squeezed my hand. "I'm so sorry for your loss, dear. If you need to leave, we all understand." My mother Patricia sat in the back row, playing her role perfectly. Elegant gray dress, pearls, subtle makeup that somehow made her look both dignified and fragile. When our eyes met, she gave me a sad smile. To everyone else, she was the concerned mother, worried about her grieving daughter. To me, she was the woman who'd helped steal my inheritance and might have had my husband killed. The meeting began. Arnold Patterson, the chairman, called for order. He was in his 70s, a friend of my father's for decades, someone I'd once trusted completely. Now I didn't know. The first hour was financial reports, quarterly reviews, projections. Derek presented the Nexus Holdings offer with practiced polish. He had slides, charts, analysis, showing how the sale was the most logical business decision. $40 million for a clean exit, allowing board members to cash out their shares, eliminating debt and risk. He made it sound so reasonable. I sat silent, watching him perform. He was good, really good. I could see board members nodding, convinced. Finally, Arnold said, "Are there any questions or concerns before we vote?" I stood. My legs were shaking, but I forced them steady. "I'd like to address the board." Derek's expression didn't change, but I saw something flash in his eyes. Calculation. My brother has been embezzling from our father's estate. He's selling this company not for good business reasons, but for personal profit. He has a secret $5 million kickback deal with Nexus Holdings. Everything he's telling you is a lie designed to steal my father's legacy. The room went silent. You could hear the ventilation system humming. Derek didn't look surprised. He looked pleased. He'd been expecting this. "Arnold," he said calmly, "may I present something to the board?" He walked to the head of the table and distributed packets. Thick documents, professionally bound. My sister has been under severe psychological strain. These are records from her treating psychiatrist, Dr. Raymond Castellano. I grabbed one of the packets. Official letterhead, session notes, diagnostic codes, descriptions of paranoid delusions, severe anxiety disorder, break from reality. Sessions supposedly dating back 6 months, chronicling my descent into mental illness. I'd never seen this man, never been to therapy. These documents were completely fabricated. Kristen's husband just died tragically, Derek continued, his voice full of synthetic compassion. Unfortunately, her grief has triggered a psychological crisis. She's making wild accusations without any evidence. She needs help, not a boardroom. "These are fake," I shouted. "I've never met this doctor in my life." But I sounded exactly like someone having a breakdown. My voice was too loud, too desperate. I looked terrible, smelled like smoke, had no evidence to support my claims. Derek kept talking. "Dr. Castellano is on standby if the board needs professional verification of Kristen's condition." A screen on the wall lit up. Video call. A man in a white coat appeared, gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses, concerned expression. "Good morning. I'm Dr. Raymond Castellano, licensed psychiatrist." "Yes, Kristen Hammond has been my patient since April. She's experiencing significant mental health challenges that are affecting her judgment and perception of reality. I've never seen you before." I was screaming now, which only made me seem crazier. "This is all fabricated. Derek is setting me up." Gerald stood. "Arnold, this seems highly irregular. How do we know these documents are legitimate?" Derek had an answer for everything. Contact information for the medical board to verify Dr. Castellano's credentials, an affidavit signed by the doctor, even a second medical opinion from another psychiatrist who'd supposedly evaluated me remotely based on my behavior patterns. It was a complete fabrication, but it was also completely convincing. Derek had spent time and money building an airtight false narrative of my mental incompetence. My mother stood, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "Sweetheart, please. We're trying to help you. This isn't you talking. This is your grief and your illness. Please let us take care of you." Arnold Patterson looked at me with genuine concern and pity. "Kristen, perhaps you should take time to grieve and heal. We can postpone your voting privileges until you're well." "No." I could feel control slipping away. "You can't do this. I have 20% of shares. I have the right to vote. You can't take that away from me based on fake psychiatric records." "We're not taking anything away," Derek said softly. "We're protecting you, and protecting the company from decisions made under psychological distress." My phone suddenly buzzed, loud in the tense silence. News alert notification. I looked down at the screen without thinking. Breaking news headline: Car explodes in JFK Airport Long. Term parking authorities investigating possible bombing. Photo attached. My silver Honda Accord, completely destroyed. Twisted metal, shattered glass, black scorch marks spreading across the concrete. The license plate was still visible in the wreckage, mangled but readable. My car, my license plate. If I had driven home from the airport yesterday, instead of taking an Uber, I would be dead. The car bomb was meant for me. They'd expected me to drive myself home, not realizing I'd be too grief-stricken to get behind the wheel. Someone had planted a bomb in my car, timed to explode when I started the engine, killing me and making it look like a terrorist attack or random violence. And it had failed, only because Derek himself had told me to take an Uber. I looked up at my brother. He was staring at my phone, clearly able to see the news headline from where he stood. His face had gone white. Not the white of someone shocked by random news. The white of someone who'd just realized a carefully planned murder attempt had failed. He told me to take an Uber. Why? Because he knew the car was rigged. He wanted me to survive the airport, but wanted to appear uninvolved. Or maybe there was a different plan. Maybe the bombing was supposed to happen later, after the board meeting, after I'd been discredited. But it went off early, or on a timer they'd miscalculated. The room was spinning. My husband poisoned in Guatemala. My evidence destroyed in a hotel fire. My car bombed in an airport parking lot. This wasn't just about money. This was about erasing me completely. I held up my phone, hand shaking. Does everyone see this? My car just exploded in the airport parking lot. Someone tried to kill me. Someone planted a bomb. The room went silent again. Board members looked at the screen, confused, uncertain what this had to do with the meeting. I turned to Derek. You told me to take an Uber yesterday. In the group chat. You told me to take an Uber instead of driving. You knew. You knew someone put a bomb in my car. Derek's face transformed. Fear, then anger. Then he pulled on a mask of concerned confusion. That's insane. Kristen, listen to yourself. This is exactly the paranoia Dr. Castellano documented. You're connecting unrelated events and building conspiracy theories. This is textbook delusional thinking. I have evidence, I shouted. Evidence of embezzlement, evidence of fraud, evidence that connects all of this. My husband was investigating you. He died under suspicious circumstances. And now someone tries to blow me up. This is all connected to stopping this sale. Gerald stood beside me. Arnold, I move we postpone this vote and contact the authorities. These are serious allegations. Derek looked like he might lose control. This is a manipulation tactic. She's trying to derail a legitimate business decision with wild accusations and fake emergencies. This is why we needed the psychiatric evaluation. The psychiatric evaluation is fake. I was screaming again, losing credibility with every word. Check the records. Call the medical board. This doctor doesn't have a real patient file for me because I've never been his patient. The conference room doors suddenly burst open. 2 NYPD detectives and 4 uniformed officers entered. The lead detective was a woman in her 40s, short brown hair, tired eyes. Kristen Hammond? Everyone turned to look at me. Yes? You're under arrest for making terroristic threats and attempted fraud. You have the right to remain silent. The room erupted. Gerald shouting protests. Patricia crying theatrically. Derek looking relieved, vindicated, perfectly, playing the concerned brother whose unstable sister was finally getting intervention. What? I couldn't process it. I didn't threaten anyone. I didn't commit fraud. The detective pulled out documentation. A restraining order filed by Derek that morning. Psychiatric records submitted as evidence that I was dangerous. Text messages I supposedly sent threatening Derek and my mother. I know what you did. You'll pay for this. You and Mom won't get away with it. I'll destroy you both. Messages in my sent folder. Time-stamped from the past week. Messages I never wrote. Someone had accessed my phone, planted fake texts, created evidence of threats I never made. The car explosion at JFK, the detective continued. Your brother's attorney suggested you might have staged it yourself for insurance fraud and to gain sympathy. The timing is suspicious given the conflict over your father's estate. I couldn't breathe. They'd thought of everything. Every move I could make, they'd already countered. Evidence planted, accusations made, narratives built. I was being handcuffed in front of my father's board of directors, let out in disgrace while Derek stood there looking like the victim. As the officers guided me toward the door, Arnold Patterson called the vote. All in favor of accepting the Nexus Holdings offer? 7 hands went up. Only Gerald and Susan abstained. The sale passed. My father's company sold. 300 people would lose their jobs. 4 decades of work erased. And I was being taken to jail. Patricia was crying. Please get my daughter the help she needs. Derek put his arm around her. We'll make sure she's taken care of, Mom. The last thing I saw before the elevator doors closed was my father's portrait, his kind eyes watching his company being destroyed by his own son, while his daughter was arrested for trying to stop it. The police precinct smelled like coffee, sweat, and desperation. I sat handcuffed to a metal table in a small gray interrogation room for 3 hours before anyone spoke to me. 3 hours to spiral into every dark thought, every fear, every realization that I'd lost absolutely everything. Finally, 2 detectives entered. Detective Sarah Walsh, the woman who'd arrested me, and her partner, Detective Marcus Torres, a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and an expression that suggested he'd seen every kind of human depravity and was no longer surprised by any of it. They sat across from me. Walsh opened a folder and spread out printed copies of text messages. I know what you did. You'll pay for this. You and Mom won't get away with it. It'll destroy you both. I never sent those, I said. My voice was hoarse from screaming, from smoke inhalation, from everything. They're in your phone's sent folder, Torres said. We checked. Time-stamped. Sent from your number to your brother's number. Someone hacked my phone, planted fake messages. I never wrote those words. Walsh leaned back. Your brother has provided extensive documentation of your mental health issues, paranoid delusions, conspiracy theories, aggression toward family members, classic warning signs of someone becoming dangerous. That documentation is fake. I've never been a patient of Dr. Castellano. Torres pulled out another document. We contacted Dr. Castellano. He confirmed you're his patient. Provided session notes going back 6 months. Very detailed notes about your deteriorating mental state. They'd paid him off, or created a fake identity, or found some corrupt psychiatrist willing to lie. However they'd done it, the lie was airtight. Your car exploded today, Walsh said, watching my face. Convenient timing, don't you think? Convenient? Someone tried to kill me. Or you staged it, Torres suggested. Insurance payout on the car. Sympathy from the board. Evidence for your conspiracy theory about your family. Except the bomb went off early, before you could be seen nowhere near it. Bad timing on your part. I stared at them. You think I bombed my own car? Bomb squad found the device was set with a basic timer. Could have been set any time in the last week. You left that car in long-term parking 9 days ago. Plenty of time to plant a device before you left for Guatemala. Remote location. Security cameras don't cover every angle. You stage a threat against yourself, then use it as evidence that your family is dangerous. Why would I do that? Money, Walsh said simply. Your father's estate, his company. A lot of assets at stake. You're upset your brother is making business decisions you don't agree with. You want to discredit him. Take control yourself. So you create a narrative. He's embezzling. He's trying to kill you. He's the villain and you're the victim. Classic family dispute turned criminal. He is embezzling. I have evidence. Where? Torres spread his hands. Show us this evidence. It burned in the hotel fire last night. They exchanged a look. The kind of look that said, Of course it did. So you have no evidence, Walsh said. Just accusations. Against your brother who has documentation proving you're mentally unstable. Against your family lawyer who's a respected member of the bar for 30 years. Against your own mother. You see how this looks? I did. I saw exactly how it looked. It looked like a woman having a breakdown, making wild accusations, creating false emergencies to get attention and control. My husband was murdered, I said. Quieter now, defeated, in Guatemala. I think my family had him killed because he was investigating the embezzlement. Torres wrote something in his notepad. Your husband died of a heart attack, according to the death certificate. It wasn't a heart attack. It was poisoning. A nurse told me. She saw the symptoms. What nurse? Sophie Brennan. She was at the hotel last night helping me prepare for the board meeting. Walsh pulled out another document. We checked the hotel registry. No one named Sophie Brennan stayed there last night. No woman matching any description you could give checked in or out during the relevant time period. No, she was there. I talked to her. She had documents. She helped me organize evidence. Security footage from the hotel lobby shows you sitting alone last night at 11:37, Torres said, talking to yourself. The desk clerk noted it because he found it concerning. No one else was present. The room tilted. Sitting alone, talking to myself. Was Sophie real? Had I hallucinated her? Had grief and exhaustion and desperation created a helpful ally out of thin air because I needed one so badly? Check her employment with the nonprofit in Guatemala, I said, grasping at anything. She said she was a volunteer nurse. We will, Walsh said in a tone that suggested they wouldn't find anything. Hours passed. They brought in a psychiatrist for evaluation, asked me questions about my state of mind, my sleep patterns, whether I'd been hearing or seeing things that others didn't. Every answer I gave made me sound more unstable. Yes, I'd been under extreme stress. Yes, I hadn't slept in days. Yes, I'd seen things that no one else could now verify. Yes, I was making accusations I couldn't prove. Finally, Derek's lawyer arrived. A woman named Jennifer Hartley. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. She presented a proposal. Derek would drop all charges if I agreed to voluntary psychiatric evaluation. 72-hour hold at a private facility, she explained. You'll be evaluated by professionals. If they determine you're not a danger to yourself or others, you'll be released. In exchange, you agree not to interfere with the company's sale or make any further accusations against your family. And if I refuse, then we proceed with criminal charges. Terroristic threats, attempted fraud, possibly arson and insurance fraud, if the car bomb investigation leads where we think it will. You're looking at years in prison, Kristen. This is blackmail. This is a family trying to help a member in crisis, Jennifer said smoothly. Your brother loves you. He doesn't want to see you go to jail. He wants you to get well. I looked at Walsh and Torres. You're really going to let them do this? Just let them manipulate the system this way? Walsh shrugged. We have evidence of threatening communications. We have concerns about your mental state. If your family is offering an alternative to incarceration that gets you help, that's not a bad option. They were all in on it. The whole system corrupted by money and power and carefully constructed lies. I refused to sign. Told Jennifer to go to hell. Told Derek the same thing when she called him from the interrogation room. Eventually, police released me. Not enough evidence to hold me officially, but the investigation would continue. I walked out of the precinct at 11:47 at night, more than 12 hours after I'd been arrested. The October night was cold and dark. I had 17 missed calls on my phone, all from reporters wanting statements. The story was everywhere. Hyris arrested amid bizarre accusations against family. Woman claims family tried to kill her. Police say she bombed own car, mental health crisis, or corporate fraud. Hammond family drama unfolds. Derek had given interviews. Perfectly measured statements about his concern for his sister, his sadness that her grief had led her to this point, his hope that she'd accept help. I sat on a bench outside the precinct, trying to figure out where to go. I couldn't go to my apartment in Brooklyn. Derek probably had people watching it, or worse, waiting inside. I couldn't go to my mother's house in Connecticut. I couldn't go to friends. because I realized with horrible clarity that I didn't really have any. Mark and I had been so focused on our work, our missions, each other. We'd let friendships fade. I was utterly alone. I had $43 in my wallet. My credit cards were probably compromised. My bank accounts locked. I had nowhere to sleep, nothing to eat, no plan, no hope. I'd lost everything. My husband, murdered by people who should have loved him. My father's company, sold to liquidators who would destroy it. My inheritance, stolen systematically over years. My reputation, destroyed by fabricated psychiatric records. My freedom, hanging by a thread as criminal investigations continued. My sanity, questioned by everyone, including myself. I thought about Mark, about my father, about everything we'd built and lost. I thought about how easy it would be to just stop fighting, to let Derek win, to disappear into whatever psychiatric facility they wanted to lock me in and never come back out. The cold wind cut through my smoke-damaged clothes. My phone battery dropped to 2%, the screen dimming. I didn't move to charge it. What was the point? Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Again. I stared at it, certain it was another reporter, another person ready to twist my words into more evidence of instability. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Maybe habit. Maybe the last tiny spark of fight left in me. Maybe fate. Kristen Hammond? Male voice. Authoritative but not unkind. Yes, this is Special Agent Lucas Carson, FBI. I'm sending my badge number to your phone right now. You can verify it through the Bureau's website. This is real. A text came through. FBI credentials, badge number, photo ID. I checked the website with my dying phone battery. It matched. What do you want? I asked, too tired to be suspicious. I need you to stay exactly where you are. I'm 3 minutes away. We need to talk about your husband, Mark. Don't move. Don't hang up. I'm almost there. A black SUV pulled up to the curb 2 minutes and 40 seconds later. A man in his 40s stepped out. Dark suit, graying temples. FBI badge held up for me to see clearly. Behind him, a woman emerged from the passenger side. Agent Diana Foster, her credentials equally visible. Miss Hammond, we need to talk somewhere secure. Will you come with us? What choice did I have? I got in the SUV. They took me to a federal building in Lower Manhattan, escorted me through security, up to the 7th floor, into a conference room with no windows and a heavy door that locked behind us. The room was furnished simply. Table, chairs, recording equipment, a laptop, stacks of folders. Agent Carson gestured for me to sit. Can we get you anything? Coffee, water, food? I realized I hadn't eaten since yesterday. Water, please. Agent Foster brought me a bottle. I drank half of it in one long swallow, my hands shaking. Carson sat across from me, his expression serious but not unkind. Kristen, I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Mark contacted the FBI 7 weeks before his death. He'd discovered the embezzlement involving your father's estate and suspected it connected to larger corporate fraud. He sent us everything. Documents, recordings, evidence. We've been building a case against Derek, Patricia, and Howard Castellano for 2 months. I couldn't speak. Mark had contacted the FBI 2 months ago. While we were preparing for the Guatemala trip, he'd been protecting me, building a case, working with federal agents. And he'd never told me because he didn't want to worry me until he was certain. Foster opened a laptop, turned it toward me. We've been watching, documenting, gathering evidence. Your family's activities extend beyond simple embezzlement. They're part of a larger pattern of corporate fraud involving shell companies, money laundering, and real estate schemes. The screen showed surveillance photos. Derek meeting with men I didn't recognize. Patricia at a bank, signing documents. Howard at a restaurant, passing an envelope to someone. Mark was going to be our witness, Carson continued. When he died in Guatemala, We suspected foul play but couldn't prove it immediately. We needed more evidence, more time. We had to let the conspiracy continue while we gathered what we needed for indictment. You let them steal my inheritance? Sell my father's company? Destroy my life while you gathered evidence? Anger flooded through my exhaustion. We didn't know they'd escalate this way, Foster said quietly. We thought they'd wait, be cautious. We didn't anticipate the hotel fire or the car bomb. By the time we realized how desperate and dangerous they'd become, events were moving too fast. Carson leaned forward. But Kristen, tonight we have everything we need. The car bomb was the final piece. He opened a folder. We've been monitoring Derek's communications with enhanced surveillance warrants. We have him on recorded calls arranging the car bomb with a hired criminal named Joseph Red. We have financial records showing Derek's payment to Red. $40,000 transferred through 3 accounts to hide the trail. But we traced it. We have security footage from the airport parking garage, showing Red planting the device under your car 6 days ago. Foster pulled out more documents. The hotel fire? Also Derek. He hired someone else for that. We have the communications, the payments, the planning. He panicked when he learned you had evidence. Thought destroying it would eliminate the threat. Sophie Brennan, I said. The nurse who helped me last night. Was she real? Foster smiled slightly. She's real. She's one of ours. Undercover. We placed her at the medical clinic in Guatemala 3 weeks ago, after Mark died, to investigate the circumstances. She confirmed details about Mark's symptoms that support poisoning. We have a Guatemalan national in custody who confessed to poisoning Mark's food at someone's instruction. We're still building the chain of evidence connecting him to Derek. My breath caught. Mark was murdered. Yes, Carson said gently. We believe he was poisoned with a compound that mimics cardiac arrest, sophisticated, difficult to detect in rural medical settings. The killer is cooperating with Guatemalan authorities in exchange for reduced charges. Sophie disappeared during the fire, I said. I couldn't find her. Extraction protocol, Foster explained. When the fire started, she had to leave immediately. She'd gathered your testimony, confirming details we needed about Mark's investigation. Once the building was compromised, her cover could have been blown if she stayed. We got her out fast. The police said she wasn't registered at the hotel. That security footage showed me sitting alone. Carson's jaw tightened. Derek has someone inside NYPD. We don't know who yet, but someone fed you false information to make you doubt your own sanity. Sophie was absolutely there. We have our own footage proving it. The cop who told you that was either paid off or fed bad intelligence. He pulled out his phone, showed me a video. Hotel lobby, last night, 11:37. Me sitting in a chair. Sophie Brennan approaching, sitting beside me talking. Clear as day. Real. Not a hallucination. I started crying. Not sobbing, just silent tears of relief that I wasn't losing my mind. We let the board meeting happen because we needed Derek to feel confident, Carson continued. We needed him to make his final moves. The car bomb sealed his case. Tonight we have enough for indictment on multiple federal charges. Tonight? I looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. Right now, Foster said. As if on cue, Carson's phone buzzed. He checked it, nodded. Teams are moving. He turned the laptop toward me again. Multiple screens. Live surveillance feeds. Federal agents in tactical gear approaching different locations. One team at a Manhattan penthouse. They knocked. Derek answered in expensive loungewear, irritated at the late hour. Then he saw their badges, and his face went white. Agents pushed past him into the apartment. I watched my brother get handcuffed, read his rights, let out in shock. Another team at a Connecticut estate. Patricia's house, the home I'd grown up in. Agents at the door. My mother in her silk robe, her face transforming from annoyed confusion to horror as they placed her in handcuffs. Her carefully maintained composure shattering completely. A third team at a law office. Howard Castellano still at work despite the hour. He tried to run when he saw them coming, made it to the stairwell before 3 agents tackled him, handcuffed on the floor, his dignity gone. Other arrests I didn't recognize. 3 men who'd worked with Derek on the shell companies. The man who'd planted the car bomb, arrested at a motel in Queens. The man who'd set the hotel fire, picked up in Brooklyn. Carson showed me the charging documents. Pages and pages of federal crimes. Embezzlement, wire fraud, money laundering, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, arson, obstruction of justice. Each charge carrying years, sometimes decades, in federal prison. The board sale is being invalidated as we speak, Foster said. Emergency injunction filed by the FBI citing fraud in the transaction. The sale to Nexus Holdings is void. Your voting rights are immediately restored. The company stays with Hammond and Associates. I couldn't process it. It was too much, too fast, too good to be real. This is real? I asked. They're really arrested? This is actually happening? It's happening, Carson confirmed. The news will break in about 30 minutes. We wanted you to see it first, to know before it becomes public. You've been through hell. You deserve to see justice happening in real time. The news broke at 1:34 in the morning. Every major outlet, massive corporate fraud, and murderforhire plot, uncovered prominent family members arrested. FBI raids target Hammond family in elaborate embezzlement scheme. Woman's husband murdered. Family arrested after 2-month investigation. Footage of Derek in handcuffs. No longer smiling. No longer confident. His expensive clothes and perfect hair suddenly making him look shallow and pathetic instead of successful. Patricia crying in the back of a police car, her makeup running, her pearls seeming ridiculous against the orange of her prison jumpsuit when they processed her. Howard Castellano shouting at cameras about his innocence, demanding lawyers, making threats that sounded desperate instead of powerful. This was what the news meant. This was what made them drop their phones. Not just the car explosion, but their own arrest, their own exposure, their own destruction broadcast for the world to see. The next 2 months were a blur of legal proceedings, media interviews, and rebuilding. Derek, Patricia, and Howard all went to trial separately. The evidence was overwhelming. Mark's documentation combined with the FBI's surveillance created an airtight case. Derek's recorded phone calls arranging the car bomb played in court, his voice cold and calculating as he discussed the best way to eliminate the problem without it tracing back to him. The Guatemalan killer testified about being paid to poison Mark, describing the specific instructions he'd received through intermediaries. Bank records showed the money trail leading back to accounts Derek controlled. Derek was convicted on 17 federal charges. The judge sentenced him to 25 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole for at least 15 years. When they led him away, he didn't look at me, just stared straight ahead, his face blank, already retreating into whatever mental space would let him survive what came next. Patricia received 15 years. She cried throughout the trial, maintained she'd been manipulated by Derek, claimed she didn't know about the murder plots. The jury didn't believe her. The evidence showed she'd been an active participant from the beginning, signing documents, moving money, covering tracks. Howard got 12 years. His law license was permanently revoked. The man who'd been a pillar of the legal community for 3 decades would serve time and emerge as a convicted felon with no career and no reputation. The others got various sentences ranging from 5 to 18 years. Joseph Red, the man who'd planted the car bomb, took a plea deal and testified against Derek in exchange for 10 years instead of life. All the stolen money was recovered and returned to my father's estate. Every penny traced and clawed back from the shell companies and hidden accounts. The total was actually higher than Mark had documented. $2.3 million stolen over nearly 3 years. The board of Hammond and Associates held an emergency meeting. They voided the Nexus Holdings sale unanimously, asked me to take a leadership role. I was appointed CEO 3 weeks after the arrests, continuing my father's legacy. My first act was firing every board member who'd voted for the sale, who'd been willing to destroy 300 jobs and 40 years of work for personal profit. I replaced them with people my father had trusted. Gerald became chairman. Susan Webster stayed as CFO. We brought in fresh talent, people with integrity who understood what the company should represent. Under the new leadership, Hammond and Associates not only survived, but thrived. We secured 2 major contracts within the first month. Employees who'd been terrified of losing their jobs rallied with renewed dedication. The company became a story of resilience, of ethics winning over corruption, of family legacy preserved against incredible odds. I established the Mark Hammond Foundation with $1 million from my inheritance. It funds humanitarian medical missions throughout Central America, providing equipment, training, and facilities to underserved communities. Every clinic we build has a plaque with Mark's name and his mission statement. Everyone deserves access to healing. Sophie Brennan retired from the FBI 6 months after the trial. Turns out she'd been thinking about leaving for a while, tired of the undercover work and the toll it took on her life. I hired her as head of security for Hammond and Associates. She's brilliant at it, uses her investigative skills to protect the company from fraud and ensure we never fall victim to the kind of schemes that nearly destroyed us. I sold my mother's Connecticut house and donated the proceeds to organizations supporting victims of family financial abuse. It felt good to take that symbol of her false elegance and turn it into something that actually helped people. My apartment in Brooklyn became mine again once I changed all the locks and installed a security system. It took a while before I could sleep there without panic attacks, but eventually, it started feeling like home instead of a crime scene. Therapy helped. Real therapy this time, with a genuine psychiatrist who specialized in trauma and grief. Dr. Amanda Walsh, no relation to the detective, helped me process losing Mark, confronting my family's betrayal, surviving multiple murder attempts, and rebuilding a life from ashes. 6 months after the arrests, I found myself standing in the arrivals terminal at JFK Airport, the same terminal where I'd landed that terrible day, where I'd texted my family asking for help and received cruelty instead. But today was different. Today I was here to pick up a new employee, a young woman named Emma Price, flying in from Chicago to join Hammond and Associates as a junior project manager. She'd applied, interviewed remotely, impressed everyone with her skills and enthusiasm. This was her first big move, her first major job in a new city. She'd mentioned in her interview that she didn't know anyone in New York and was nervous about the transition. I'd told her not to worry. I'd pick her up from the airport myself. As I waited by the baggage claim, watching travelers reunite with family and friends, I thought about that text message 6 months ago. Flight lands at 3 p.m. Can someone pick me up? We're busy. Try Uber. Why didn't you plan better? At the time, it had felt like the ultimate rejection. My family abandoning me in my darkest hour, too selfish to drive 20 minutes to help their grieving daughter and sister. It had broken my heart. But now I understood it differently. Their refusal to pick me up had saved my life. If Derek or Patricia had picked me up, I would have gotten into a car with people who wanted me dead. Who knows what would have happened during that drive? They might have staged an accident, might have driven me somewhere isolated, might have found another way to eliminate me while making it look natural or random. Their cruelty was my salvation. Their rejection was my protection. Derek telling me to try Uber, the most dismissive and cold response possible, was the reason I wasn't killed that day. Sometimes the worst thing people do to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. Emma emerged from the baggage claim, looking around nervously. She was about 24, carrying a backpack and pulling a wheeled suitcase, wearing jeans and a Chicago Bulls sweatshirt. When she saw me holding the sign with her name, her face lit up with relief. I walked up to her with a genuine smile, the first smile that felt natural in months. Emma, I'm Kristen. Welcome to New York. I'm here to pick you up. Simple words, but they meant everything. This is who I am now. Someone who shows up. Someone who doesn't abandon people when they need help. Someone who does the right thing, even when it's inconvenient. Emma looked like she might cry from gratitude. "Thank you so much for coming. I was worried about navigating the city by myself." "You're not by yourself," I told her. "You're part of the Hammond family now, and we take care of each other." As we walked to the parking garage, Emma chattering about her flight and her excitement about the job, I thought about everything I'd learned. Betrayal doesn't just break you. It reveals what you're truly made of. The people who abandon you in your darkest hour show you exactly who they are. And sometimes that rejection is the greatest gift they could give you, because it shows you who not to trust, who not to rely on, who not to keep in your life. Strength isn't about never falling. It's about standing back up when everyone expects you to stay down. When the world says you're crazy, when the systems are rigged against you, when every door is closed and every ally has vanished, that's when real strength appears. Not in the absence of pain, but in the decision to keep fighting through it. I'd learned to trust myself, to trust my truth, to never let cruelty silence my voice. Even when everyone told me I was wrong, even when I had no evidence left, even when I sat on that bench outside the police station wondering if giving up would be easier, some part of me knew the truth and refused to let it die. The family you're born into isn't always the family you deserve. My blood relatives tried to destroy me for money and power. But I'd built a new family. Gerald, who'd stood by me when it mattered. Susan, who'd questioned the sale. Sophie, who'd helped me when I was drowning. Emma, and the other employees at Hammond and Associates who were becoming more than just colleagues. And Mark. Always Mark. My husband who'd loved me enough to investigate my family's crimes, to build a case to protect me, to try to give me justice even though it cost him his life. He was gone, but his love still protected me through the evidence he'd gathered and the foundation I'd built in his name. Sometimes the greatest victory is becoming the person they tried to destroy and thriving anyway. Derek wanted me broken, silenced, institutionalized, dead. Instead, I was CEO of a successful company, head of a charitable foundation, a survivor who'd turned pain into purpose. As Emma and I loaded her luggage into my new car, I'd bought a reliable Toyota after the insurance payout on the bombed Honda. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not happiness yet, maybe not for a while. Grief still lived in my chest, and some mornings I still woke up reaching for Mark only to find empty space. But peace. The knowledge that justice had been served, that I'd survived, that I was building something good from the ashes. "Thank you again for picking me up," Emma said as I started the car. "My family isn't really the type to help with stuff like this. They said I was crazy for taking a job so far from home." I looked at her, this young woman starting her journey, and I saw my younger self, trusting, hopeful, not yet understanding how cruel people could be. "Sometimes distance from family is exactly what we need," I told her. "Sometimes the life we build ourselves is better than the one we inherited." She smiled, not yet understanding the weight of those words, but she would. Eventually, everyone learned the difference between people who claimed to love you and people who actually showed up when it mattered. I pulled out of the parking garage into the New York traffic, feeling the autumn sun warm on my face through the windshield. Somewhere in federal prison, Derek was learning what it meant to lose everything. Patricia was discovering that pearls and elegance meant nothing behind bars. Howard was understanding that betraying trust came with consequences. And I was driving through the city my father had loved, running the company he'd built, helping a new employee find her way, living a life Mark would be proud of. That's what victory looks like. Not revenge, though justice felt sweet. Not wealth, though financial security mattered. Not even happiness, though that might come eventually. Victory looks like survival, like standing when they expect you to fall, like building when they burn everything down, like showing up for someone else, even when you're still healing from the wounds others left behind. I'd asked my family to pick me up from the airport. They'd refused. And in that refusal, they'd given me the greatest gift possible, the chance to discover who I really was when stripped of everything I'd thought defined me. I was Kristen Hammond, daughter of Richard Hammond, architect of dreams, wife of Mark Hammond, fighter for justice, CEO of Hammond and Associates, founder of the Mark Hammond Foundation, survivor of murder attempts, arson, fraud, and betrayal. And I was driving through New York City on a beautiful October afternoon, helping someone who needed help, living the life I'd chosen instead of the one they'd tried to force on me. That's all any of us can do. Show up, help each other, build something better than what was left behind. Trust ourselves when the world says we're wrong. Stand up when they try to push us down. And never, ever let cruelty have the final word. Have you ever had someone's rejection turn out to be a blessing in disguise? Have you ever discovered that the worst thing that happened to you was actually protecting you from something even worse? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about resilience, survival, and finding strength in impossible circumstances. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they know, that betrayal doesn't have to be the end, that standing up for truth matters even when it's hard. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope wherever you are, whatever you're facing, you remember that you're not alone, that your truth matters, that you have more strength than you realize, and that sometimes the people who abandon you are doing you a favor by showing their true colors before they can do worse damage. Take care of yourselves, show up for each other, and never stop fighting for what's right, even when the whole world tells you to give up.